Here's a few words with Jesse Bond of Southwest Fire Academy. Hey, man.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Good. All right, you ready?
Yeah, got a rundown for me?
Yeah, a couple courses to note. We have a pump ops course April 8th to 11th at the Wabashine campus, and firefighter survival and RIT April 15th to 19th, same place. And then we're doing an open enrollment course in Essex for 1041 instructor level 1, and that's May 10th to 12th, and that's a blended program, so it's a little bit of online and then one weekend. As always, our 1001 pre-service class is always available for enrollment.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 82 of Multiple Calls. I'm Scott Hewlett. How does one persevere? The struggles and journeys are as varied as the people that face them, as much as some of the themes may be the same. And because of that, the hindsight of stories don't often give us a clear roadmap for next time. Much like firefighting, there is a difference between thought and preparation and experience and application. But perhaps it's enough to pull hope from the fact that they somehow found a way to make it through, and grow our empathy and compassion for those that didn't. Here's my chat with Bobby Eckert.
Kick off with where you grew up and tell me a bit about your family growing up.
So I'm from South Jersey. If anybody is familiar with the Philadelphia metro area, New Jersey is a very interesting place. We have beautiful shoreline, and then the top part of New Jersey is like New York City metro. And then the bottom, not the full bottom. When they say the Garden State, that's like the bottom of New Jersey. That's when they're like tomatoes, corn, crops, cabbage. That's like down there, like Cumberland County, Salem County, that stuff. I'm from Camden County, which I work in the city of Camden, and which is directly across the river from Philadelphia. Like my parents grew up in Philadelphia and moved to the suburbs. A lot of people from Philadelphia, I feel like every Northeast city experienced the flight out of the city when factories shut down and moved and things like that. So either people moved from Philly, if I'm standing over top of Philly looking at it, they moved to the left into Pennsylvania, or they moved to the right and went over the bridge in Philadelphia or in the New Jersey. And that's how my parents left the city. I grew up in a town called Collingswood. So it goes Philadelphia, geographically, Philadelphia, the Delaware River, Camden, Collingswood. So I grew up right next to the city of Camden where I work in. The town's a little different than what it was. It was very blue collar when I grew up. When I grew up, the Philadelphia shipyard, the Navy shipyard, was a thing. It actually, under the Clinton administration, it closed. So there was a lot of kids whose parents worked at the Navy Yard all over the area. So it was like a lot of that going on. Yeah, so I grew up in Collingswood. It's like a bedroom. It's a town now. It's kind of like up and coming with. Well, it's coming. It's got restaurants and it's a place to visit and it's a great place to live. But when I lived there, was like more blue collar / like Mayberry / like a rougher patch of town. And not crime. I'm talking, it was like more blue collar on one side than the other type of thing. Bedroom community with big, beautiful Victorian homes, balloon frame homes. It was interesting. My parents, when I was 2, they bought a house, the second oldest house in town. It was built in 1761. My parents spent a decade restoring it, like the historical time period.
Nice. What'd your mom and dad do?
My dad was a fireman. He's a boat builder by trade and a cabinet maker. Made bar tops, cabinets, built wooden boats, went in the military, came out and got hired on the fire department because there was a job opening, and he was a member of the volunteer firehouse in Collingswood, and then he got hired on the career staff. It's always been a combination. Well, not always, since like 1926, it was a combination fire department. My mom did odd jobs. She was always she was a secretary at the church. That's how she met my dad. She was a secretary for a bunch of different places, and then she got hired by the Camden County Sheriff's Department and was the head secretary in the Internal Affairs Bureau, and she did her time there till she retired. So when I was young, like from like 0 to, I don't even know how old, maybe 6 or 7, my mom took care of me. And then she went back to work.
Nice. Brothers and sisters?
I got a half sister from my mom's previous marriage. And then my mom was married 3 times. And then I have a stepbrother from a few stepbrothers, but the one I never met. One we don't talk to, and one we do talk to from they have no blood runs through my veins, and they never lived with me. They always had their own families. Every family's got their own interesting dynamic.
That's why I love to hear about it. Definitely shapes who we are and why we think the way we think. So that's why it's so interesting to me.
Growing up, I was an only child. It was just me and my parents at home. My parents had me at an older age. Like my dad was 45, my mom was 43 when I was born. My dad graduated high school in 1956. Like he was like a greaser. Like that was his life. Like my mom used to dance on American Bandstand in the 50s.
Amazing.
Like she would go there after school and dance on American Bandstand. Like you can go on YouTube and see videos of my mom dancing as a teenager on American Bandstand. Like my dad was born in 1938. My mom was born in 1940. My friend's parents were born in like 1960. So it's like I had like a generational gap in parents from like my friends. So that added to like an interesting upbringing in how things were. And it was the 80s and 90s, and that was like an evolving time for our country. People, I would say I have no regrets in my upbringing, but it was definitely different than every other kid around me.
Yeah, we share that in common. My dad was around the same age. My mom was 9 years younger. So yeah, we're in the same generation. What was school like for you?
I would say I had a rough time fitting in because I was an only child, and everybody else, I think I might have been the only child. Maybe there was one or two. I didn't know. A lot of people had brothers and sisters, so I didn't know what I didn't know, like a fashion trend. I went to public school. I didn't know like everybody is wearing Converse. My mom would take me to get Bobos, or like I didn't know that like that was a thing until maybe like 6th or 7th grade. But I struggled with dyslexia, and I didn't find out until I was in 6th grade. So school was difficult for me in applying myself academically. Like I consider myself an intelligent person and always have. It's just because I had a learning disability, I didn't recognize it. Actually, a teacher, her name is Mrs. Sillage. She's retired. She lives in Florida. I'm actually Facebook friends with her. She's the one who saw it and that I had dyslexia. But at that time, it was like 1995-ish. There was nothing for that. It was, you have dyslexia, good for you, like figure it out.
Yeah. We look back on that time, we think it seems like, well, I guess to us, it seems like more of a newer time, a newer age where that should have been realized. But yeah, so many things are still being discovered about our psychology and how we learn, right? So
in relation to the fire service and this path that I've taken, the one thing I've learned that I apply every time we teach is everybody learns differently. And I've learned, and I talked about this when I was on the Scrapbook Quarterly, there's a lot of firefighters that have dyslexia, a lot. I don't know why. I mean, there's got to be a draw somehow, shape or form to it, but there's a lot of people out there that suffer from learning disabilities that are in the fire service.
Yeah, my time as a training officer, I encountered one. It was that he was outwardly spoken about it, and obviously had figured out his way, and it really helped to know that and help shape me and how I instruct. So, but yeah, you're right. There's probably a lot of people that A, don't know, or B, don't want to tell people, right?
There's probably an anxiety of saying like, hey, I got to learn this ability. I've always been open about it because I'm a very outspoken person and I don't have anything to hide. So maybe somebody can learn something, but I've always been nervous about my kids having it, right? And like trying to recognize it through them to show them what I've done to like overcome it and things like that.
What about sports and hobbies as a kid?
When I was coming up, skateboarding was a thing. I was a very mediocre skateboarder at best, but I really enjoyed getting out there skateboarding. I never was good enough to do it past the street level, but loved hockey. Where I'm from, the Philadelphia Flyers are life. And when the Flyers won the Stanley Cup in the 70s, that was like a big deal to our area because a lot of them lived in New Jersey and they partied at a bar, which is actually right near my house right now called Rexy's. And a lot of those Stanley Cup champion Flyers still live. Again, they haven't won Stanley Cup in the 70s. I get it. People listen. They're like, I get the Flyers. I understand. Okay. But loved hockey, had a chance to play ice hockey younger, and then it got a little expensive. I had to stop. Played a lot of street hockey after school. I was a mediocre baseball player at best. I remember my dad telling me, I was probably maybe 11 or 12, that, hey, we're not athletes. We're workers. Because I was struggling with like being good, and I grew up with a lot of talented athletes that have it. Like there would be 4 kids in the family, and all 4 of them would be extremely talented in every athletic position they played. I wasn't like that. I gave my best, and I never got frustrated. But I love baseball to this day. I'm a huge Phillies fan. Love hockey today. I'm a huge Flyers fan. I'm not a big football guy. Never was growing up in my house. So that's probably why I'm not. I watch it every once in a while. I'll bet on it to keep it interesting. My dad's influence on me as a child, my mom was an antiquer, like a picker. My mom would pick. So I was really into like antiques and that whole thing when I was growing up, and I still am to this day. I got a huge fire helmet collection, a lot of from the late 1800s, and that influence caught my mom from my mom. I got that. My hobbies were that growing up, and normal kid stuff. When you're an adolescent and you hit puberty, obviously your hobby becomes the opposite sex if you're into that, or the same sex, but I don't judge. But I had that. Everybody goes through that time period. And yeah, I think I had a semi-normal childhood. Some things a little weirder than others, but yeah, that's what it was. The things that stick from my childhood now are definitely hockey and baseball and my antiquing. I'm a big antiquer.
Were you helping your dad with projects? Were you into woodworking and that with him?
I wish I would have got into it more. I'm very regretful of it because my dad is just amazing. He's 85. He can still throw down and build things. It was like too tedious for me. I don't know if it was like my learning disability or whatever. It wasn't me. Like that was his father's thing and his thing. That wasn't me. I would help him. He'd go out and do something. I would help him. Like the whole time they worked on that house that they bought, it was me and him doing all kinds of wild projects. Because they actually got it on the National Historical Registry. That was like their thing to get it on there. So they had to do like a lot of work, like time period work to get it there. I helped with that, but it was always like, ugh, it's work. It wasn't like, oh, it's a hobby.
Yeah, I felt the same way about it. What about other guides and mentors other than your parents?
I always was around older people because my mom was in like the Democrat club. And I'm not so like they talk like political. Like there was a town Democrat club and we would go there on like Thursday nights and my parents would hang out and have a few drinks, and like there'd be like all these old people. So I was always around like World War II veterans, World War I veterans at that time, and they weren't really like mentoring, but I would talk to them. I don't want to. It took probably joining the fire service to maybe get around people that were like in a mentoring way to me. I didn't really maybe know what a mentor was know I was being mentored until maybe 16, 17 years old. I was always around adults as a child. I wasn't around many kids unless my mom arranged it. So it was always like, go to this event. Like my dad was a fireman. My dad would work 6 night work straight. So I would spend 6 nights with my mom and she would take me here. She was very involved in her union. I'd be at the union meeting sitting in the back with the cigarette smoke banked down.
Yeah.
She would take me to an auction. She would take me when they played cards. Like I went to all that shit as a kid. Like I would just sit there and you just shut up. And can you imagine taking your kid now somewhere with no technology? I had nothing. I would just sit there. Oh yeah, I was allowed to speak. Now I can't get an iPad in front of my daughter fast enough.
Did your dad expose you a lot to the fire service? Was that what led you to it? How did you come into that?
My exposure was going to visit my dad at work. Being a young kid, 4, 5, 6-year-old, I thought everybody's dad was a fireman. I didn't know there was other jobs available. I just thought that this was normal. We walk up the street to the firehouse. My mom would drive us up there, and Christmas, if my dad was on day work, Santa would take the presents to the firehouse, and we'd open them there. And that was like exposure growing up. I didn't really know. And then I got a little older, and you get a little maybe hip to what's going on. I remember my dad being injured a few times, and I was young. And the first couple times I didn't think anything of it. Like as I got a little older, I would get like a concern if he's okay. And then when my dad became the fire chief, like the chief of department, he was on a different schedule. He was on day work. So he would drive me to school in the chief's car and I would have a little more exposure, but that was really it. Truth be told, I wanted to go in the military at a young age. My dad was very proud of his military service. So that was something that I was overly interested in. And then the firehouse where my dad was a career firefighter and they had a volunteer component, and they started, actually the whole county kind of did like this fire explorer program through the Boy Scouts of America. They actually ran it at the time. I don't know who runs it now, but when I was 14, that's when my dad's like, hey, sign up, it'll keep you out of trouble. And at that time I got in a little bit of trouble, and it was like, yeah, I'll join it. And it was like, oh, I'm going to join and be a fireman. It was, I always probably wanted to be a fireman. I would be telling you if I didn't, like, I kind of knew, like, being a kid, like, I'll probably be a fireman like my dad. And then there was a couple times when I would go pick my mom up because she worked in Camden, and they had slime green fire trucks, which I think are amazing. And I was like, wow, look at that. And then my dad would take me to fires or whatever. So there was always like an allure. But as a child, I don't think your mind's there, like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. It was just probably something I would do. At what capacity, I didn't know. And then when I joined the Fire Explorers, it kind of just took off like a rocket.
What other jobs did you have before you joined the fire service in that way?
I didn't do anything. I mean, I was in the Cub Scouts and plateaued with that. I did Little League, plateaued with that. It was more just you're 14 and there's a junior fire program. Come every Monday night. We have a drill. You can come Tuesday night to the regular drill. You can run these type of calls, but you can't run these type of calls. So you had gear on. Maybe you grabbed a hydrant for them or you changed an air cylinder, but it was more just kind of learning the fire service. So I didn't really have anything until, I mean, when I was 16, I got my first job, but it wasn't fire service related. I worked in a restaurant, but it was just like exposure. And then you go to a fire and you're like, wow, that's pretty damn cool. Like, wow, I hooked to the hydrant to this fire. I got them their water supply, and it just kind of again, it went very hard. And then that's when I started talking to guys that had been around a while. And then you go in and you hear stories of your dad that you didn't even know your father was like that person, because you know it's your father. So you view him in a way where he's your father, and you're hearing stories about not only fire stuff, but him
Antics.
Drink till antics. Drink till the sun comes up. Throw him crush beer cans at cop cars, stuff like that. And you're like, wow, that's my dad. That's cool. There's like that encompassing part of it, that there's the firehouse, and then there's the social aspect of it that has been fun for me and has been a detriment to me in my life.
Do you talk shop a lot with him now? Have you picked his brain and learned more about what life was like back then?
Yeah, so I have a pretty good understanding of his career and his past. I just had the opportunity to have dinner last week with him and a bunch of the older guys and mid-range guys that he brought into the job and mentored, and it was a lot of fun. We shared some stories, and my dad would be a fantastic fire chief right now. Not that he wasn't then, but he would be a fantastic fire chief right now with all the bullshit that goes on in the fire service. My dad is a zero tolerance bullshit person. He's definitely a type of leader that puts the product and the people first. Not only like the firefighters, but the people we're protecting. Like that's like his thing. So,
but you think he'd be beneficial to bring that perspective back again? But do you think he'd obviously probably encounter a lot of flack from, I guess, the administrative and cultural norms as they are now?
Yeah, I mean, I get it every day of my life. So I don't know how he'd be able to translate it nowadays. But if I speak fire to him now, sometimes it's like speaking a different language. Like I was talking to him the other day about emergencies, and the emergencies that we respond to now that are non-fire related are not emergencies that he ever encountered or was even trained for or even thought of. So it's interesting to see generational, but when it comes to leadership or street firefighting, pump operations, all stuff, like everything that he says is applicable today. There's no doubt about it. But I've had the chance to sit down and pick his brain multiple times. We can't work together. We don't get along when we work together. We can't work together at all. Like, well, if you sling a tape measure out and I say it's 15/16, he's going to argue with me on the 15/16. He's going to have to check it himself. We're that type of duo.
It's got to have really shaped how you see the fire service, though, having that sort of bridging, like that direct personal connection to the past and where we are now.
I've seen many people from my generation whose dads were icons in the fire service not do well with their career, or flatline their career, or sabotage their career, or not have a bad attitude, or think that they're going to be what their dad was. There was a time in my life where I wanted to be my father. And then a conversation with a human being led me to realize I'll never be my father, because my father lays in bed with my mom. I don't want to lay in bed with my mom. So I'm not going to be my dad. I had to forge my own thing while remembering the name that I'm carrying on. I think a lot of people, I just made a post about it the other day after the conversation that I had with my dad out to dinner. It was more like so many people, they waste time. Time is life's most precious commodity. You don't get it back, right? I'm sure maybe you have that same mindset. So if you waste any time in your career, that is not time where you can be pushing in a positive direction or advancing to a goal of whatever it is. So I'm very thankful for the people I was around that hold me down and force feed me humble pie. I needed it, but My father's definitely influenced my career. There's no doubt about it. But I've gone a very different path. Some of the things that he's into in the fire service, I could like. My dad loves fire investigation. Like that is, he loves figure. I could care less. I hope it's an arsonist. I hope he keeps going. Like I don't, I honestly could care less.
Yeah, the fun's over.
I've never cared how the fire started. It's never like but that's like something my dad needs to know before he leaves the fire. I don't care.
What was the process for you to get on then, since you were already sort of embedded? Was it pretty seamless, or how'd that work to make it a career?
In Collingswood, they took over the ambulance from a private company that was contracted. And they found it more economical to hire firefighter EMTs or EMT firefighters, however you want to do it. And they hired 7 firefighters. So I got on at 19 as a career firefighter in Collingswood, where my dad did his entire career. And the ambulance was a component. And I mean, the process was like a test and a physical test. And there was no civil service rules or guidelines because it's a Title 40 town, meaning they don't follow civil service. So they did what they did. I have no doubt that I got hired because my dad was the fire chief. When I left my interview, the fire chief told me he didn't want to hire me. I'm immature and yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. And so when he told me that, the day he told me that, I said, I'll take the job, but I'm not staying here. I'm not like, you basically just told me you don't want to hire me, but you're going to hire me. I'll take the job. I'll get in the pension system and start my clock. But day one, before I even started my job, you just ruined my mindset of what I wanted to do. So I went home and told my dad that conversation, and he's like, you do you. It's your career. Like, I'm not going to force you to stay what I did or do whatever, but just know that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. So be methodical of what your plans are. I got hired with somebody else that he's actually lieutenant in the city of Philadelphia now. He left and went to Philly. Another guy left and went to Philly too. But he was trying to get hired in Camden and got kicked off the list for residency, and there was a whole bunch of dramatic stuff like that. But Camden was always in allure. They went to fires. They went to a lot of fires, and it was right next to me. And it was a city fire department that does no EMS, which is exciting. So I moved in there early on because you got to be a city resident, got a city address, and waited for the test and took it. And the process to me was a written test, a physical, and then you got your number and you waited to be called. But I was 18 at 9/11. So I was 19 in 2002. So there was a war going on. And it was, while I was in Collingswood and Camden wasn't hiring, it was getting increasingly frustrating, and the military allure was there to me. I'm like, this doesn't work out. I'm going to join the military. And I had a situation where I wasn't only testing in Camden, I was testing in places that didn't have a residency requirement. And I got hired by a bunch of places like within a 10-day span and had to make a decision. So I chose the city of Camden, and that I was in the recruit class 0654.
What was the academy experience like?
It was interesting because I already had firefighter 1. So I always tell people I got my bachelor's degree in firefighter 1. I went through it once and then I went through it again. It was cool to learn how the city did things, but the relationships that I made with those 33 human beings to this day give me chills, and it's a bond that cannot be broken. Like, we are extremely, extremely, extremely tight recruit class. And I work with some of them a lot. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's all my same recruit class on a rig and I'm the captain, and it's fun. And because we're a small city, we only have 200 guys on the job. So it's small enough where you know everybody, but it's big enough where you don't work with everybody. That bond to this day is something that I'm so proud to be part of that recruit class. There are guys in there that have just changed my life at that age, changed my life at this age. There are friendships that I have I can't put into words. It was not about the training experience. It was about, like, we got paid on Friday, every pay Friday. We were at the bar from 3 p.m. till they kicked us out. So we bonded over a lot of things. And then we all got laid off together in 2011. Every one of us got laid off. You would think that would cut you. It actually made us closer. There was that aspect of it also.
How long was that layoff for?
Everybody's layoff varied. There was guys out for 18 months. I was out for 7. So everybody's laid off time varied. It was very uncomfortable being called back to the job when you have great friends that you've held their kids and been to their birthday parties, and they're unemployed. It was I wouldn't use the word bittersweet. It was like a mind fuck. It really was.
What did you do during the 7 months? Did you think you weren't going back? Like, what was your take on that time?
I didn't want to work anywhere else. I have a lot of pride sometimes to the point where it cuts me deep and is not healthy for me. I didn't want to work anywhere else. I got a few job offers. They put you on something called the Rice List in the state of New Jersey, and that you can get hired different places. There's a few places that offer me employment. I said no. I worked one part-time shift as a part-time firefighter. I was like, this isn't for me. At the time, I just collected unemployment.
But you didn't know what the callback time was going to be. You didn't have a sense at that time.
They finally came up with a system as you retire. As somebody retires, you get brought back. So there was a guy, his name's Steve Kinky. I'm actually friends with both his sons. Both his sons are firefighters in Cherry Hill, which is a township a few miles outside the city. Steve Kinky called me and he's like, I'm leaving. And I was like, oh. He's like, no, I'm retiring. So I didn't know what he meant when he said leaving. I'm like, should have let off when you retire. So he's like, I'm retiring. And then that got me back on the job. So great guy, good fireman. I work with him a lot. And it was really cool to take his spot, so to say.
What were the rookie years like, and how drastically different was it from what you'd experienced so far?
Night and day, from suburban to urban. It was a rough start. I could not get anything right. From you go in thinking you know something. I'm like, I was a career fireman. I didn't know shit, man. I was so friggin' green. I was like Gumby green. And the first couple fires, I was just mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And then we did a rotation our first year. We did 3 months in an engine, 2 months in a truck, 3 months in an engine. And not always in that form. Mine was 3 in an engine, 3 in a truck. I'm sorry, 4, 4, and 4. 4 in an engine, 4 in a truck, 4 in an engine. That was me. So I went from engine 1 to fire headquarters. But I picked something up along the way, every one. The guy that was my captain, Howard Jones, great guy, awesome fisherman. I mean, great cook. I learned prepping food, cooking food, and I learned the city streets. He taught me the streets like no other. I went to Ladder 2, which the chief of department right now was actually my captain. Again, I learned streets, I learned ground ladders, and I learned how to tiller. And I was making mistakes. And in all these first 2 rotations, I was making an overload of mistakes every fire, from forgetting things and just not being set up. It was so fast. I wasn't used to the speed of it unfolding, like guys getting off the rig and flowing. I was not used to that. And I went to Engine 9 out East Camden, and I met this guy named Larry, who was my captain, and who is from the suburbs. He literally saw that I was kind of all over the place and just pushed me down hard and built me back up. And I'm forever grateful that I landed in his company, because he taught me how to be a city fireman. Not just be a fireman, how to be a fireman in that city.
Did it rock you at any point where you were questioning, like you thought you were meant to do this?
I almost quit twice. Second time I left work and met a recruiter, I was done. I was going to get out of it. It was not like my thought process was like, I'm going to sour my last name if I keep this up. Like I'm like Eddie Mush. Like nothing's working for me. Like I'm just screwing up.
Like you were mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it wasn't like I was like, oh my God, it's hot, I'm scared. It wasn't like that. Like I was making like blunders. Like I would pull the line off and it'd be spaghetti. I threw a ground ladder upside down. I mean, who can say they done that? I did. It was embarrassing. So I was making mistakes that were embarrassing.
That guy, that mentor that sort of corralled you, and you'd say that kind of saved your direction in the career?
I resonated with, we loved hockey, so we got along about hockey. And then I resonated with his mindset. Like his mindset, his mental prowess is what attracted me to wanting to learn from him. Like he had a way of explaining things for me to understand. And I'm not saying again, this is not a shot at my last 2 captains. Like they worked very hard and diligently to help me. But like when I went to him, it was like the end of the road for me. Like I kept it inside at 2 different rotations that I was not doing well. And when I got to him, like I was like, okay, this is like put up or shut up. When if I don't make it here, if it was the same experience from the last 2, it's not going to work out for me. Like the other 2 captains were gracious and got on my level too. It's just that I was so frustrated that I wasn't picking up what they were putting down. right? Like I was being a detriment to my learning style because I was so defeated. And then when I got to my last rotation, it was like a long conversation of me not being defeated anymore. It's not put up or shut up. It's like, how about we go back to square one and then work from there?
Yeah. How do you get from not feeling like a bystander or a tag along to being part of the game?
In my fire department, if you're the new guy, you are part of the game. You're behind the captain. If you're in the engine, you're on the nozzle. So if you're first due, you're on the nozzle. So like if you're in there and not doing well, that's on you.
Yeah, but I guess you could be in that position, but you could have that feeling like I don't belong in this position. So you feel like more of a tag along, even though you're in the game.
My first year, I felt so alone, like I was on an island by myself, isolated. That it was like, and I'm like, man, I did so well in the suburbs. Like, why am I not getting this? And it was like a lot of sleepless nights. It was a lot of, and I was taking overtime too. Like I would take the overtime. I'm like, all right, overtime's experience, try to get it. And I go work with a captain who was a good guy, a good fireman, but he wasn't a good people person. And he would lay into you. You get a fire and lay, you'd be like, ah, shit. You get in your car, and I had a Jeep at the time, beautiful Jeep. I drive home and I'd be like, oh my God, like this is just it's not working out for me.
So in that place, you can be incredibly overwhelmed because your mind opens up to how much there actually is to know about the job. So how did you get built back up? Where did you start? How did you pick away at it?
Again, small, putting on my turnout gear. Like when he was like, put your turnout gear on, I want to watch you do it. I'm like, you want to watch me put my turnout gear on? I'm like, that's pretty goddamn weird. But he was like, why do you do it this way? Why don't you do it that way? And I'm like, wow, I never thought of that. So it was like baby steps to the inevitable of a fire. And then my first fire, I tripped and fell and cut my face open. So with him, I tripped, fell, cut my face open, bleeding, put my face piece on, could feel the blood in my face piece. Yeah. And he's like, get up here. And I'm like, oh my God. It was the one thing I enjoy about firefighting. There's so many things I enjoy, but the one thing I get out of it the most is nobody's perfect. Everybody's making mistakes. And every fire that I go to, the last 2 tours, I've been to 3. I can always do better, or what can I do to set myself better? So like you need to always have like that realistic conversation with yourself and like let the people you work with, like, hey man, I really messed this up. Like we should not have, this was a bad call and we should have done this instead of that. But this is why I was thinking this, so we can all learn from it type deal. I think it's really important to show that we're all human and we all can make mistakes, and there's a multitude of things that can affect your thought process that have absolutely nothing to do with firefighting, like financial, relationship, whatever.
Yeah, and there's always that piece of, if you haven't had the actual real life experience, all you can do is train on the thing and think about how it's going to go, and then you're going to have the real life experience, and that's going to reshape a lot for you. Absolutely.
But you got to be willing to be open-minded to that experience. So like a lot of people aren't open-minded to say like, I did something wrong. And that's one of the biggest problems with the internet or like social media. Like if I see a picture of you, man, you look like a fireman. You got your leather helmet on, you got your flat brim, you got your flashlight, you got all your shit, you're ready to go. And then that's how you see yourself. And then you make a mistake and you're like, man, like I dressed the part. I shouldn't be making this mistake. I train a lot, but you can go to the best training in the world. You can do whatever you can. Like some curveball, I don't even call it curveball. I call it the slider because the slider is harder to hit. The slider comes at you and you weren't ready for it and you mess it up. It's okay. It's okay. Like it's fine. It's fine. My father always says everybody's got to burn down one. It's the only way you're going to learn. I mean, as sad as that sounds, it might be a situation, but you only learn from your mistakes. You don't learn any other way. I mean, in training, take classes, but like on the job, you learn from not only your mistakes, but people's mistakes. I'm not so quick to talk shit on if I'm second doing the first in company didn't do well. I'm not like, forget them. They shouldn't have done that. No, I mean, maybe there was something that they saw that I didn't see. They made the decision they decided to make and it didn't work out for them. But I'm going to take that and put it in my pipe and smoke it when I get back to the firehouse, and we're going to decompress from it, right? And learn from that mistake.
You're not assuming bad intent or ignorance or stupidity.
I never do, ever. A lot of the fire service feels that, like, if you're extremely enthusiastic, like I am about the fire service, where it affects my life in a negative way sometimes, I can't expect the person to the right of me or the left of me or the front of me or behind me, no matter their rank, from chief officer on down, to have the same exact thought process as me. So if you expect people to have a level of enthusiasm and they don't, you're just going to get disappointed. Not only are you going to get disappointed, you're going to get frustrated. Not only are you going to get frustrated, you're going to get turned off. Not only are you going to get turned off, you're going to have an attitude. It's not going to be a good attitude. Then it's going to affect your mental health, and you're going to go down a rabbit hole you don't want to go to. That's my opinion on that.
Even though you realized you were always going to make mistakes, we're going to continue to make mistakes, when did you start to feel like you were getting your feet under you?
After the layoff. I came back, I had about 5 or 6 years on, and I went to the company that I'm a captain of now, Squad 7. I went there as a fireman, and it's a great firehouse. The firehouse is beautiful. It's built in 1910. It's a real estate thing. Location makes it a busy firehouse for house fires. So I started going to a more frequency of working incidents that got me more experience of in every riding position. And I mean, the people make it, the boss makes it. There's no doubt about it. But it's the frequency and you being open to learning from the experience that's right in front of your face. Like, people don't realize, like, when you're at a fire and you're operating, like, yeah, we have a job to do, but that is the biggest training event ever. Like, you're learning every step of the way. Every step of the way. I tripped and fell up some stairs not last night, but the night before at work, and I ate like some concrete. If I would have just slowed down a little bit, I wouldn't have tripped. So, like, even then, the rest of the fire, I was like, dude, slow down. Like, you're 41. You're going to, like, break a hip. Like, relax.
You're learning that fine-tuning that when to go fast, when to go slow.
Always. Conditions dictate, but you never know.
Sure. Why did you choose to promote, and how was that process for you?
It was more of kind of wanted the next challenge on the job. So we follow the civil service system in New Jersey. So I took the promotional exam, and it's a 75 question written test. And then you get 3 oral questions, and then you're graded. And it's fantasy fire department. So you get the person who works in a fire department has one engine company, and the person who works in the 5,000 man fire department state takes the same test. It's not jurisdictional specific. So you work off of fantasy. You can call for an airdrop if you want. Like, you have everything at your disposal. In New Jersey, in a lot of majority of the jurisdictions, there's no lieutenants. It's just a captain's exam. So I only took it once, and I came out number 5, and I got promoted at 33 years old to a fire captain. I had just a little over 10 years on the job.
Do you feel like it was enough time? Do you looking back on it, would you have liked more time?
Oh, you always want more time. I mean, anybody who's in a position that promoted and tells you they wouldn't have wanted more time is probably didn't appreciate the time they had. So I haven't driven a fire truck since 2016. That's the last time I drove a piece of fire apparatus,
wow.
Legally anyway.
Yeah.
People tell you, like, you're going to be nervous for your first run. I was not nervous for my first run, and anybody listening can take that as me sounding cocky, but I came from a really, really busy firehouse that went to a lot of fires. So, like, in emergencies, like, I felt like I was ready to go. It was the personnel issues. I was blown away. Like a brick hitting me on both sides of my face is what I was not ready for. The leadership portion of managing human beings is what just sideswiped me. In my fire department, you're a fireman on a Friday and you're a captain on a Monday, and you get a pat on the back and say, hopefully your captain showed you how to do things, kid. Good luck. And that was it. And I went to a busy engine company for runs. Like, we went to a lot of runs. So I was downtown, and it was the busiest engine for runs. So, like, we were running. Went into a lot of situations. I was the youngest person on my rig, and I was the captain. And it was a massive learning curve for me early on. And even after the first fire, which I was begging to get, I got it early on, maybe like the second or third tour. And I was like, all right, it came out, and like thinking like, these guys are, I got their respect now. Nah, well, they care less about that. It was more like, how are you in the firehouse with this, that, and the other? And now that I sit on the battalion chief's list with a possible promotion in my future, it's like your mindset shifts to yet another aspect of leadership that's non-emergencies, like personnel.
How'd you get a handle on the leadership aspect then? Did you reach out for help? Did you have any support?
I was in a double house, and I met a great friend of mine. I always knew him. I worked with him a couple of times, but I never really work with him. He was the truck captain. His name was Kevin, and I learned a lot from him. I really did, just his style and what you can do, what you can't do. When I was getting promoted, like when I knew it was probably going to happen within like a year, because it took me about 2 years to get promoted off the list. When I was like a year out, my captain at the time, Michael, came to me. He was like, "Yo, read all the OAGs, the FDSOs, everything. Like, know the rules and regulations." And I did. And I found out at that time the chiefs that were on the job that are no longer on the job and they're retired, and I can say this, they didn't know their own rules. There's many times I've been in situations where I was able to use their rules against what they were saying. So it's great to know your rules. I've got myself out of a lot of situations knowing the rules that they didn't know their rules, that they were trying to shove down my throat. That wasn't. I'm like, dude, this is your signature right here. This is your order. Like, this is what you want, but you're telling me to do something completely opposite. So how do you want to play it? Know your rules, but you don't get confidence right away. The water might be warm, but it might have a lot of sharks in it. You got to swim to the side where there's no sharks, like a big net, and hang out there and invite people over.
How'd you get into instructing?
I applied to local fire academy probably like 6 or 7 years on and got hired, and then doing Fire 1, which I miss greatly teaching. I miss Fire 1 so much. Did a lot of that. Did Fire 2, started doing like some specialty programs, and then I don't do well with politics. I don't do well with clickiness, and I don't do well with bad attitudes. So if you put me in all three of them, it's a powder keg, and I want nothing to do with it. And it was getting to be that way, and I left it. And then I got hurt at work very seriously, and I was laid up bedridden, and it just kind of started this thing with my wife's side. It was kind of my wife's idea, because she was like, quit bitching about it, do something about it. Like, I'd seen Instagram posts, and like, that is just not what you do. Like, that is 1,000% wrong. Like, that's going to hurt somebody. And I still see posts like that. I'm like, whoa, but I don't comment, whatever. I'm not, who am I? But I started like doing my own thing, and it was like a small snowball at the top of a mountain of snow, and it just rolled down, and here I am.
Right. What do you miss about Fire 1?
Giving people their first positive engagement into firefighting. Like, if they're met with positivity, they only know positivity, and can go from there. If they're met with negativity, then they only know negativity, and then they're looking for positivity, and they might not get it. If you're positive along the way, or their first introduction is positivity, then their foundation is stronger than somebody who's met with negativity. When
you were saying you would and decided to go your own way, you mean Eckert Fire Tactics. So talk to me about that. You sort of alluded to how it got started, but tell me about its growth and how it stands today.
It's been platonic. It's been a wild ride. Never thought I'd be where I am with it, but I am. It started out with like, hey, there's a conference here, put in for it and do like an engine class. And I did like an engine class, and then people liked it. And I was at this conference and that conference and this conference and that conference. Then I was traveling too much, not around my house. I was like, I got to localize this. So then I localized it. And then I would see hands-on videos, and I'm like, I can do that better. I can do that better. I can do that better. I'm like, well, I need to raise money for the hands-on. And then I got my wife on board, who had a marketing background. We came up with a logo, and then we just I came up with a hashtag. My wife's like, you got a hashtag? I'm like, I don't know what that is. She's like, you got to make a hashtag. And I'm like, I still know what you're talking about. She's like, got a hashtag like firefighters, fire duty. I'm like, nah, come on, my own hashtag, Eckert Fire Tactics. And that was, I can only think of one name, Eckert. That was my dad. My dad is the one who taught me everything I basically know about firefighting to a point. So I was like, let me pay homage to my last name. And that is how, when it says Eckert, it's not me, it's my father, man. Like, if you go in my trailer, we open a door, there's a huge picture of my dad out of fire. Like, this is his name, not mine. It is my name, but it's his legacy that we try to carry on, because he had in the 70s and 80s, he really did a lot of next level things with fire training in the area locally. And like, I learned how to stoke fires from my dad. Like, he would take me to the drill tower that Collinsville had, and I watched them smoke barrels and hay and pallets and like what they did. That's how I learned that stuff. And it was the point where I was like, I want to do hands-on, but I want to do it right. And I want to do it live fire. I got to get insurance. And the insurance took me a year to get, because when you tell an insurance company you want to add fire to it, they're like, no. So I had to like sell it. Actually, getting a college degree in public safety administration is one of the greatest things to help me get to that level. I was able to use that as a resume type thing when I was applying for the the insurance. And then all the people that I'm very friendly with in the fire service that are great human beings and have a lot to offer that maybe tried to get opportunities elsewhere and didn't get them. I was like, yo, I'm doing this. Let's go. And some of them have been with me from jump. Some we've gained along the way. Some have moved on to other things. And we're just, here we are, man. We done the FDIC thing. We've been all over the country. I've been on the side of a mountain in California. I've been in Texas. I've been in New England. I've been in Florida. I've been in North Carolina. I've been all over. And where it is right now, I am possibly looking probably in the 2024 year that I might get promoted at work. So like my life and schedule might change. And I'm trying to like streamline it more to where people come to us more than we'll go to you. If you want to hire us and we'll go to you, we absolutely will. But I'm not picking up hands-on at every little conference anymore. And I'm not taking a shot at the conferences. They're good. But with my children and my family and the instructors that I've worked, their kids and their family, it's better to hold our own events right now and do our own thing. So we're kind of there right now for this year anyway. It could change.
Yeah, and how is it just from a business sense? Like if you've never had a plan to be a business owner and run that side of things and the overwhelming amount of logistics and then talk about people dynamics, right? There's a lot of that too. So just talk to me about that part of it.
Yeah, so I chose to disregard my wife's business advice, run it like a fire department. And man, that failed miserably. We've had to drop back and pivot in a different couple directions. I know nothing about business. Everything I've learned along the way. I've read a few books that have helped me, but this is such a unique business that nobody really has. There's no comparison to it. It's like if I owned a car wash, I could call another car wash owner and say, hey man, where do you get your soap from? I don't have anybody else to call because nobody does what we do. So being the only person in that realm, it's harder. I chose to invest my wife and I's personal money into the business with buying our own equipment. Like I have door props, saws, props, hose, nozzles, Halligan bars, hooks, air packs. I got more air than most fire departments. And I chose to do that. And we have overhead. So like we have to make our nut or it comes out of my pocket. It is a business, but when it comes to business decisions, I now approach it like a business. But when it comes to delivery, it's always about who we're delivering to. It's never not going to be about the student taking our class. Like if you come take one of our classes or the fire department comes and hires us, we're going to give you the absolute best product that you're ever going to have in your life, mobily anyway, like because we're coming to you. So
getting back to what you were saying about what you miss about Fire One, you sort of get to put that into play with this.
We do, but there's a caveat to that because you get somebody out of Fire One and they're just riddled with bad habits.
No, but I mean that feeling, that intent of wanting to do it for this reason, I'm saying you get to play that out now. The
amount of feedback we get is amazing. But again, the secret recipe to what I do is the people that work for me. They're the secret recipe. It's not the equipment. It's not the props. It's them. Like I can't replace them. They're irreplaceable. So how they resonate with a firefighter, yes. And I get that feeling of gratification. But there's so much more that goes into it. My Instagram page, I answer every direct message, and there are days when I wake up where there's 20 of them, and they are from hey, what type of flashlight do you use, to I just had this call where I fell off the rig and I look like an idiot, to just had a call where a baby died, or hey, my wife's leaving me. Do you have any advice? Like there's everything in between. I'm like, oh shit. So when you put yourself out there, you got to expect to be ready to handle that aspect of it as well. I never thought I'd be doing that ever in a million years, giving advice. Sometimes I take my own advice, but sometimes I don't.
Are you seeing being a firefighter now differently, you feeling more as a part of the fire service as a whole, as opposed to just a firefighter in your department, in your region?
It's a good question. I don't really look at it any differently. I just kind of be me. And if you like what we're offering, you can have it. If you don't, that's fine too. I don't see it as like a global effect. I don't know. I try to lay low and just do my thing and stay in my lane. And if it helps people, it helps people. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I don't know. I can't speak for what people get out of what we do. I just know what I can offer.
No, I guess I'm asking from a standpoint of, say you're only ever in your bubble, right? And you've got your frustrations and your struggles within your own department. Perhaps maybe seeing yourself as a firefighter in the fire service, right? It can help bolster that drive, that motivation, it can ease a little bit of the pain that you may encounter if you were only ever focused in on your local area.
I'm still in that bubble where I just kind of move around a little bit more, right? So like my bubble will land in Illinois, maybe it'll land in Idaho, maybe it'll land in Connecticut. I don't know, and maybe there's something there where I meet somebody where they need to hear what I have to say, or maybe our conversation takes them to a place where they needed it to go.
Have you changed anything about the way you do business from seeing how other people do it across the country?
No, I don't really pay attention to anybody else. I only worry about myself. I'll see things, but I watch a lot of my ideas get stolen, but that's fine. That's you always laugh at that, but no, I don't care what anybody else is doing. I never have since I've been a child. I've never cared what anybody's doing. I just worry about myself. It doesn't bother me.
How'd your book come about?
My wife's idea. She was like, you should take the first year or 2 days for taxes and put them in a book for people to read. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't buy them. I'm dyslexic. I don't buy books unless I have to study them for promotional exams. So it started, and then I sold a bunch of them. There's no money in it. If anybody wants to self-publish a book, you're an absolute lunatic, just so you know.
Yeah. So how was the process for you? Like with the dyslexia, you never really thinking about being an author. Like, how was the experience?
It's hard. So like I have Instagram posts for days on my phone. I could probably fill 6 months worth every day if you wanted me to, sitting on my phone. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of journaling. And that's just like the way I try to overcome my dyslexia, and I'm able to put thoughts down on paper because my attention is not great. So like I'll lose a thought very quickly. So I always fire it down in my notes or whatever in my phone. If you have an iPhone, the notes section is fantastic. I have it up often, and it's full of notes. So yeah, I kind of just dissected everything. And the first one I edited myself, and oh my God, if you read the first one, you can tell the grammatical errors. The second one, I got my wife's friend, CJ, great guy. He edited it for me. And then he's editing this one. And then I'm done self-publishing books for a long time.
Is this a second edition of the same book, or you're doing a different book?
Do my third.
Oh, third. Okay.
Yeah. So I have one out. I got volume 1, volume 2. This will be volume 3. And then I'm done for a very long time. You got to get photos. You got to get permission from the photographer. And then you got to hire a graphic designer. They got to lay the book out for you. Then you got to go to a publisher, and then paper prices change all the time. So like I wait for paper to be this price because I don't want to charge anybody more for the book. And then we're not making a lot of money off the books. So it's a lot of work. I'm not saying I do it for the money, but it's like sometimes it's a lot of work to break even. So it's not like my favorite thing to do. I hate that. And I hate selling t-shirts. I hate retail because all the retail sits behind me, and then I got to ship it, and then it just sits there, and I don't like that either. But I do like a run of t-shirts like once a year, and that's it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think merch is difficult. People think it's easy to do merch, but it's not.
Oh my God, it's absolutely horrendous. Yeah, I don't recommend it.
You touched on briefly about an injury that put you out for a bit. Maybe expand on that for me and how that was for you.
I suffered a traumatic head injury at work. I took a 4-inch coupling I was draining 4-inch, and it was over my shoulder, and actually I had my helmet on, which a lot of people draining hose don't usually have their helmet on. And the hydrant got charged. It was like a 30-inch main, and it was a 100-foot piece of large diameter hose, and it shot up and hit me. The coupling hit me in the back of the head, knocked me unconscious. Came to, I was blind. I had about, from ambulance ride to the trauma, I had like 7 or 10 seizures. And then I kept having seizures. I couldn't walk. A lot going on. It was a lot of setbacks. My wife was very pregnant at the time with our daughter Reese. A lot going on. I was told I'll never be a fireman again. I was told my vision will never be 100% again. It was just setback after setback after setback after setback. So it was mentally one of the hardest times in my life.
And how was the path back? Did you have help with rehab?
Yeah, I had a few friends would drive me to rehab. The city got me to drive to rehab. I'm a very, very, very stubborn person. If you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it. Whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. Sometimes the outcome is great. Sometimes the outcome is terrible. But I'm the idiot that's been drunk that jumped off the roof into the pool of the garage. I've done that before. Like sometimes it doesn't lead me down a great, sensible decision. But for that situation, it was like, I can do this. I need to get myself healthy. I need to change my diet. I need to explore every holistic option that is non-medicine to get me to where actually when I got off medicine is when I started to have positive strides in my recovery. So take that for what it's worth. But, just because a doctor tells you to do something doesn't mean a doctor knows what they're talking about. That's just, they're following precedents. Everybody's body's different. It was extremely frustrating. I probably came back about 2 months too early because I was just at my breaking point of I needed to be back at work, and it was a lot on the home life. We have 4 kids. It was just a lot, and I couldn't drive. My poor pregnant wife at the time, she had the worst of it, no doubt about it.
Any ongoing repercussions from that event?
My light sensitivity is outrageous. I have 4 to 6 pair of sunglasses I rotate through depending on the weather conditions outside. Dusk is actually the worst for me. If you see a picture of me outside, there's a 100% chance I have sunglasses on. Unless I'm operating at a fire, I don't have sunglasses on. Sleep, it took me a while to get back to good sleep. Like just recently, in the last year and a half, I kind of filtered in some good sleep. Depression, anxiety, alcohol abuse, just from frustration of not being able to do it. So I had erectile dysfunction for almost 9 months. That plays on you mentally as a gentleman. A lot going on.
Yeah, we were talking briefly before we got started here about mental health struggles and how our perception can change on ourselves, but also on others, and judgment once you've been really close to it yourself. So maybe just expand on that, how that's sort of changed for you.
Nobody has anything unique. There's something that you're going through that somebody else probably went through, right? Maybe not exactly the same, but let's take a death of a parent. My parents are alive. I don't know what that's like. I will experience it one day like we all do, but you can lean on people for that. But everybody processes information differently. Everybody's feelings hit differently. Everybody's emotions are differently. So everybody's going to take whatever incident happened and cope with it in a way that they maybe think is right, and maybe it's not right, and go with it. As a child, and I'm guilty as this as a parent, I've never taught my children coping mechanisms. I've taught them other things. In school, we don't learn coping mechanisms. You don't learn that. And then in the fire service, we are a very substance abuse fueled place where go to the bar, go here, go there, work out. Sometimes working out isn't healthy for you. I'm not saying it's not healthy in your body. Talk about mentally.
Yeah, if you're already at your max and you're stressing your body even more than that, yeah, that's true.
You could hurt yourself. Sometimes the gym isn't a good place for you, especially if you're slamming on heavy weights. You could hurt yourself. So it's the one thing I can say with this, decompression is huge. And anybody listen to this, if anybody does listen to this, I'm going to tell you right now, I am the worst at taking my own advice. I don't decompress properly at all. I just want to keep going and going and going and going and going and going. Then when it's a problem, not even a little problem, it's got to be a major problem, then I'll maybe deal with it. Maybe. Is that healthy? I don't know. But the one affliction that I have in my life, the biggest affliction I've had is I stepped into the fire service and got immersed in it. Not when I originally stepped in, when I got immersed in the fire service, my biggest problem is I am terrible, absolutely terrible at personal life. Terrible at it. I suck at it so bad. I suck at relationships. I suck at friendships. I suck at being a son. I suck at being a husband. I suck at being a father. I struggle deeply with it because when I go into the firehouse, I know exactly what I need to do. When I leave the firehouse, I have no fucking clue sometimes. I don't know if I'm left, right, center, or doing the right thing. It's funny, earlier you asked me what my hobbies were as a kid. Ask me what my hobbies are now. I don't have any hobbies. My hobbies are firefighting and parenting. When I leave the firehouse, I do my business for 3 days off. You don't think that's affected my family? You don't think that's affected my marriage? You don't think that's affected my relationship with my children? It absolutely has. In the last year, it came to a breaking point where I had to really drop back and redesign what I'm doing with my business moving forward. And not everybody that works for me liked it, but I had to do what was best for me and my family, right? And sometimes when it comes to your health, mentally and physically, you need to make the right decision. And I'll tell you what woke me up, which is kind of funny. Well, it's not funny because it's painful, but again, it takes me to be at the very end of the rope for me to make a change. I had gout in my toe. Anybody who's ever had gout? Oh,
Yeah, I've had it.
my God. A sheet laying on whatever gout is infected feels like somebody's clubbing you right in that area.
I woke up one night at the hall and a call came in and I couldn't walk and I was like, what is going on? Yeah.
Dude, gout's no joke. And then medicine to clear gout gives you explosive diarrhea to the point where you can't leave the house, right? And messes with like your eyesight, like you're not good. So you're forced to change it through diet, exercise, and healthy choices. And honest to God, that was the thing that kind of made me clean up my act. And that was like September-ish. Because before September, I was on a road not good.
I was just talking this morning and it said that you either go on the diet now or you'll be forced to go on it later on.
100%. Something's going to force you to go on it. Absolutely. Because I got to go to work. I was at work not able to get my boot on. Like I was wearing my Redback station boots with my turnout pants. And I'm like, well, if we get a fire, I guess my feet are melting. I don't know because I can't get my foot in my boot.
And you're walking on your heel the whole time. Yeah.
You're doing something. I don't know. I wouldn't call it walking. It's more like it looks like a dance move from the 80s. Like
it does. Yeah.
It's wild.
What have you changed then? And what benefits have you seen from the changes? I know it's been brief, but
my relationship with alcohol has changed. That needed to happen anyway. It started happening a little bit before that because of some things in my personal life. I needed to do that. And I'm somebody who likes to drink. I do. I really enjoy drinking and socializing. So I needed to learn that there is socializing without alcohol, and there's a level of it. I had 2 embarrassing events this summer, alcohol related, that were involved in my business that I'm not proud of. It's one of the things where everybody's human and makes mistakes. I made a mistake. I was drunk. It is what it is. I'm not proud of it. But I really came back and I was like, dude, you gotta change. You gotta get your shit together. And you're putting out information that people look up the information. You can't be drunk at this event or that event or whatever. It's not that it's a good look, but it's not healthy. My relationship with alcohol changed. I've always drank a lot of water, but I don't drink anything. If I had a piece of pizza, I'd have a soda. I haven't had soda in months. I actually haven't had sugar since it happened. I'm not gonna lie. I had one. I had my mom's chocolate chip cookie. 2 of my mom's chocolate chip cookies at Christmas time.
Okay, I had a dozen.
Yeah, no, it was 2. It was 2. Yeah. And it was like a diet. I've tried like this carnivore diet thing. It's helped me out a lot. Like I had colitis before I got on carnivore. I don't have it anymore.
The inflammation clears up. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. It works out well. I don't know. I haven't tested my cholesterol. I'm sure it's very high because I'm like getting bacon grease and things like that. But it's never too late to make a change in your life, whatever that looks like. And that could be at work, that could be at home, that could be whatever, right? But I'm very happy with the person I am right now. I hope I continue on the path. When it comes to certain things, I am very easy to go a route that is the easier path, not the harder path. And the easier path isn't always the best path. But I think one of the greatest things that I've been able to do this from like August to now is like being able to really reconnect with my children and put like them first. And I wasn't doing that for a while. I was like kind of really hell bent on making this succeed. And I wasn't like, not that I wasn't involved in their life and taking them places and doing things, but I wasn't like really taking the time to see what's going on. I mean, I have a high school freshman, and I have a daughter who's 5 in kindergarten who has autism. So it's like, and I got 2 kids in between. So that are both in 6th grade. And I haven't worked a lot of overtime in a while. I got obsessed with the overtime train, and I kind of backed off from that. And just kind of right now I've been focusing on my family and me. It feels good.
It's hard to disconnect alcohol from certain things. Like you mentioned hockey and baseball, like those go together with beer, right? That's like those things they seem interwoven where they don't have to be, but it's really, you don't recognize it until you want to try and pull it out of that event.
And it's okay. Like I'm not saying I don't drink. I do. Like I haven't had a drink in a few days, but I still, if I'm out, my wife and I went out last weekend, we had a few drinks. Like it's more like I'm not drinking every day. Or like if I went to the bar with the guys, like I'm going to nurse one type deal. But even then, like, what's the point? Like, I'll just have club soda. And I think there's like a perception where like, if you're not drinking, people want to like judge you. I've honestly never, if I look back on it, never have not judged somebody for not drinking. I've never been like, oh, you're not drinking, you're a sis. I've never been like that. I'll take your money and let you buy me a drink, but I don't.
It's just about taking over control of it in your life.
I think the other thing is, like, if you made a mistake, maybe you were drunk, maybe you weren't, maybe you were sober. And if you made a mistake and you've wronged people, there's nothing wrong with reaching out to those people and be like, yo, I'm sorry. At this time in my life, it wasn't my best day. Please don't define me on that day, because I'm so much more than this. If people want to be accepting of forgiveness, that's great. If they don't, that's on them.
Well, yeah, because they're not accepting their own humanness, right?
I offended somebody this summer who's apparently an extreme Christian, and they're not apologetic. Well, they're not much of a Christian then. If you ask me, nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. There's two things the fire service do not have: perfection and experts. Anybody who says they're an expert, they're full of shit. And there's nobody perfect. There's no perfect situation. There's no perfect fire department. There's nothing. If you go around the country, and I'm very, very fortunate to interact with the fire service every single solitary day that I'm not working outside of my fire department, I swear to God, it's the same circus, different clowns. Everywhere you go, geographically, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Even if you cross the border.
Yeah, they go to a ton of house fires, they go to none. It's the same problems interwoven.
As squared away and hard charging as you and your crew are, maybe your department as a whole, how do you guys handle then mental health issues or tough calls, or what's the culture around that?
It's getting better. We had a traumatic situation happen. It was like late September, early October, an explosion where a firefighter got really hurt badly. And I was actually working. And the department got the critical incident stress debriefing in there. Like, it's changing, but it's up to the individual involved in the situation and how they want to handle it. Like, if it just happened, maybe that's not the time to talk about it. But I don't know. I don't think there's a perfect answer for mental health issues. I think everybody processes things differently. I just think if you're a company officer and you had a traumatic call with your people, I think it's important to keep up on them on their days off. And I'm not talking about like, hey, how you doing? Whatever. Maybe like, hey, on our second day off, we're going to go to Blimpies for cheeseburgers at lunch. I'll be there at 11 o'clock. Hope to see you there. Maybe it starts with that. Like keeping tone on your people, knowing what's going on. I think that's one of the biggest things of being a company officer is understanding your resources and how to deploy them properly. And that starts with your people, because they're your greatest resource.
It's definitely not a good approach to try and force people through the eye of a needle just because you have a process and it says that we're supposed to do these 3 things since this happened.
Absolutely. And I've been in group therapy, and I would rather swallow nails.
What about one-on-one therapy, though? Like, what about talking to someone one-on-one?
I have had success with it. I have not. I don't know. I think it's like the right fit. Some people don't like Nikes, but they love Adidas. Right? It's a fit. It's got to fit for you.
What's coming up next with Eckert Fire Tactics? What do you got on the go?
We have our Taking to the Streets, March 22nd or 23rd and 24th. 23rd and 24th. It's 14 skill stations, 7 on Saturday, 7 on Sunday, all live fire. And we just kind of push it to the max we kind of build up Saturday, and Sunday we get a little more wild, and we'll do about 90 firefighters, and that's our favorite event of the year. We try to do it. I'm going to try to do it 3 times this year, but I'll probably only squeeze in 2. It's just how it falls with the schedule and the weather. It's tough on the Northeast with weather. Like, I have no idea how March 22nd is going to be. It could be beautiful, or we could be in 6 feet of snow. I have no idea.
I don't think any of us know anymore. Yeah.
Mother Nature's a bitch, man. So I don't know. We have a ton of private contracted fire departments contracts to come for drill nights, lectures, things like that. So we have a lot of that coming on throughout the year. I'm going to release my book. I got a few articles I'm going to drop for fire engineering, which I've been promising them for about 6 months now, but I do have them. I'm a weird guy when it comes to writing. I have to have the perfect picture for the article, or I can't sleep at night. So that's just how I am. And that's it. We're just going to keep moving, keep the ball rolling. I'm gracious to the relationships we've made and our business supporters and partners, and everybody keeps supporting us. And we're just going to keep spreading the good word and our experience through how we know how to do it. And I have no plans on going anywhere anytime soon. So
it's awesome. I know you already get a lot of messages, like you said. You're obviously very gracious with your time. So if people want to reach out and connect with you or find a course, how can they find you?
I do my most damage on Instagram because it's so easy. How you people use Facebook is beyond me. I have to ask people I can't even figure out how to edit the Facebook post I made this morning. It's wild. Only thing Facebook's good for is Marketplace. So it's Eckert_335 on Instagram, EckertFireTactics.com. At the bottom of the page, you can fill out your information. It sends us a message to our website. I get back to everybody. I do. If you call me, I probably won't answer. But if you want to text me. I'll get back to you. I don't, maybe not right away. Like today, I have 2 basketball games tonight in 2 different locations at the same exact time. So that's my life this evening. So my life is always filled with something wild going on, whether it's kids or teaching or work or whatever.
Well, I appreciate you taking time today, man. It means a lot.
It's been great, man. I thank you for always supporting us and what we do. And it's been awesome. It's nice meeting you finally. And Happy New Year.
I'm sure we'll connect again soon.
All right, man. Take care.